guys haven't used Riverside before, I'll just share my screen, kind of talk about the ins and outs. But it is audio as well as audio video. Most of the people I work with, like I basically talk to all of our businesses that use Riverside. So people from like Spotify or Vox Media, a lot of news companies like CNN and stuff like that. Like they'll do interviews through Riverside. So I just make sure they're happy with it. Talk about like better ways for them to use it. See if they have any requests for like adding cool features to Riverside, that sort of thing. But yeah, we can talk about the platform. If you have any other questions about just getting into audio or doing that sort of work, like after college and stuff like that, happy to answer questions about that kind of thing too.
Yes. Because a lot of these guys now, they're all juniors.
Cool.
And especially classes all juniors. And so there are maybe some folks among us who are looking to take this thing to the next level. And so if you could provide some perspective on that, this way they can kind of get a feel for, hey, listen, I like this a lot, and this is where this could lead potentially. That would be great.
Sure. Great. All right. So I'll start sharing my screen. Let me know if you guys can see this okay. So I'm inside of a Riverside account right now. Is that big enough? That looks good?
Yeah, that's cool.
Sweet. So we can start with the demo stuff. I'll be pretty quick about it. As soon as you sign into a Riverside account, you're going to see something that looks like this. So Riverside, like I said earlier, it's a remote recording platform. So this is how you can get anyone who's on a laptop or a phone or a tablet to be able to record them locally. So you're getting way better quality audio, video than if you're doing something over like Zoom or recording a Google Meet like today. So what you would do is create what's called a studio. Just click this new studio button. And a studio is where you're actually going to join to do a recording session. Like when I click go to studio, that's when I join a sort of meeting room that all my guests are going to hop into. So we can create as many of these different studios as we want to. It's kind of a way to help organize all the different recordings. So sometimes people will create a bunch of different studios every time they do a recording session. It's a new studio. Sometimes they do one for every single like episode of a podcast. Like I'll create a studio for episode 1. Maybe do a couple different takes. Maybe I do like a recording that's just the very beginning of the episode, stuff like that. So after I have all of the stuff from that one episode, I'll create a new studio for the next one. It's really up to you guys how you structure them. So after you create one of these, next thing you want to do is invite people to the podcast. So one thing about Riverside, there's actually different links you can use to invite people. So they'll have different levels of access, or maybe they're recorded, maybe they're not recorded with the high quality files. So the 3 levels you can invite people to a studio session are guest, audience, and producer. The guest link, this is probably the most common link you're going to be using. That's something you would just copy. You can put it inside like a calendar invite, or when you're emailing this link to someone. That's how they're going to join when you're getting the high quality recording. So if they're a guest role, they are going to be locally recorded. So that high quality audio or audio and video. So in Riverside Studios, you can record up to 8 people at once locally. So if you're maxed out like as many people in the call as possible, we would have 8 people being locally recorded.
Okay, I have one quick question because
Sure.
I'm around with it. Is 8 the max if you're using the free version, or is 8 the max if that's the paid version?
Either one. So the free version too, it's still the same number for how many people could join one call simultaneously. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the guest roles, they get the high quality recordings of those people. When you join as a producer role, this is a little different, sending this link out, mainly because producers, they're not locally recorded. So this is someone who has the ability to look at your studio settings like you can, the person who's actually in the account hitting record. This producer role, though, they're not able to be locally recorded, no high quality recordings of that person, but they can help us adjust settings, things like that. So this could also be someone who's on the call. You want to be able to see them, hear them during the conversation, but we don't need the high quality version of their recording. They're more just here to help out or kind of be a fly on the wall. That's one thing we could use a producer link for. And you can have as many of these links on the call because they're not locally recorded.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what's the call? So you're saying that, so you can make that and there can be like a whole bunch of people. So it's like a group thing, like group chat. And you can do it like by each person. So you can get out and then go back in and go with that person. If you don't want to be with that person, then you go to another one. And you can help them out, like fixing stuff like that while you're at it.
With the Riverside account, you can do one recording session at a time. So it's not like I could start recording in this studio while that's running. I'll go to this different one and start recording there. you're only doing one session at a time, but whoever's in that room, like in that studio while you're recording, they'll be able to hear you, see you, that sort of thing. So I don't know, were you asking if you could do more than one session like simultaneously, and you're like hopping in the room to like check out like who's there, if they have questions, that sort of thing? Oh, sorry.
An answer would be no. So you can only
Cool.
be doing one, only be in one studio at this at a time.
Yeah, correct.
And have people, and the way that some of the functions are at the bottom of the screen, it's almost or comparable to like what a Zoom would be in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Like being on like a Zoom call, you're basically in a Riverside studio. So we create the studio, send out those invite links to people so they know to join. One cool thing about these Riverside links too, they're never going to change or expire. So if I create a studio here in my Riverside account, if I'm recording with the same people like every week, I don't have to recreate a studio, send them a new link. If I'm using that same studio, like this demo studio here, if I send someone that guest link once, they'll be able to click that link, join the studio as many times as they want in the future. Like there's no limit on how many recordings could happen in the same studio. The main limit, if you guys have free plans versus the paid ones, basically how many hours you're allowed to record per month. I think with the free account, you have something like 2 hours. The first 2 hours that you record are going to give you separate tracks. So you get audio tracks, video tracks for only that one guest. And then there's no other audio video tied to that person. You can work with the separate tracks when you're editing them together. After 2 hours, the option you get from Riverside is just to be able to download all of those files combined. So you get like a grid view or a speaker view, that sort of thing. So I'll show you guys what that editor thing looks like in a little bit for sure.
Cool.
Yeah. Very last thing I'll talk about with these invite links, the audience member. So you can have up to 1,000 of these inside your call, inside that studio at a time. So audience members, it's basically like you're watching a live stream through a link, but instead of going on YouTube or something like that, you're just clicking a Riverside link and you're inside that Riverside studio as an audience member. So no one could see or hear you by default. You're just kind of joining the call. You can only see and hear people if the recording's actually happening. Like before I hit start recording, if you're an audience member and you have your link, you would just see like a blank screen. Once I start that Riverside recording, that's when those audience members can see and hear people. They can ask questions, make comments inside of the chat in the studio. And they do have the option to call in live. So one thing they could do, you'll have the permission, because you're the person running that call, to accept or deny that person who wants to join the call when they're an audience member. Basically, if they want to, they can ask like, hey, can I join this conversation? If you say yes, now they're using their mic and camera so people can hear and see them. You're actually going to get a local recording, the high quality one, of that little bit that the audience member is talking or asking a question. So audience links are cool if you want to have a thing where you have like audience that's just watching the call most of the time. They're not really participating. But if you want them to call in and be able to, be recorded, be seen, heard by people during the conversation, you can have them join as an audience link.
So go ahead, Victor.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so that's like Google Meet or Zoom combined with Adobe at the same time together.
Kind of like that. So it's like if you were watching a live stream, but you had the option to, like if you're on like a TikTok live and someone like hops in and all of a sudden you can see and hear them, it's kind of like that, where they can ask if they can join the call. So yeah, Adobe with like recording things straight into Adobe, that's kind of like what Riverside's doing, but instead of everyone having to be in the same room, they're just joining from a link. And then you're getting the local, like there's no compression or anything applied as long as we're wearing headphones and stuff in Riverside in those links. So if you want to get a really good recording of someone the entire time, invite them as a guest. But if you want them to just kind of be someone who's just watching, you don't see or hear them, but maybe for a little they join the call to actually be recorded, that's when you'd use an audience link. But I would say for the most of the time, like when you're just trying to record someone, you just send someone a guest link and they're using that one.
So in other words, like too, if I was doing like a sports podcast and I had my guest on the show and we were talking about, the wild card weekend and things that happen and moving forward, what we're looking like as far as moving into the divisional round of the playoffs. If I had somebody that I invited as an audience member, once we start this particular studio, they could call in and say, hey, I'd like to, comment on this, or or we'd be like, hey, listen, we'd like to get perspective from the audience here. And next thing you know, somebody calls in and they're able to answer the question or, give some sort of feedback with regard to the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. Like a lot of people doing podcasts, sometimes they'll have a mix of stuff that's live and then they'll put out the podcast afterwards and it's way higher quality. Because on the live call, like if we're doing something right now over the internet, if someone who's listening has really bad internet connection, maybe it doesn't sound or look as good as it would if I'm looking at the recording of it afterwards. So sometimes podcasts do this thing where, maybe they have like a Patreon or something where if they have subscribers that pay a lot of money to them because they like the podcast or something, there's like a smaller group that gets extra perks. Maybe they get to join as an audience member during the taping of the episode or something. So they can ask questions or maybe they'll end up in the episode afterwards, fun stuff like that. But honestly, for the most of the time for these like really high level podcasts, like Spotify, things like that, like it's a pretty close session. Like they don't do a lot of straight stuff like to live while they're recording. That most of the time, they'll record it, edit it, then they'll put it out. And that's like the official thing. But I have seen a lot of people, it started out at audio only. So a lot of podcasts, when they put stuff out, like they're only using audio. But what they're doing now is they'll record video at the same time while they're doing that audio recording for the podcast. And now that they have video, maybe I select like 5 minutes or like a little bit of content during the podcast. I can use that on social media to help plug the podcast. Like maybe there's a moment during the show that I think would be really good to put as a little snippet to help promote it, like on TikTok or on like an Instagram story, something like that. So that's where I'm seeing a lot of people start to use video with podcasts. So they create like smaller bits of content that helps like advertise the show or, maybe like a highlight from the show, stuff like that.
I have a question. The videos from like your podcast, it could be uploaded to like YouTube or whatnot.
Yeah. So we'll see a lot of people do that. They'll record the whole thing over a video. The podcast goes out on like everywhere else you listen to it, like Spotify, Apple Music, whatever, Apple Podcasts. But then they'll have that whole video version. And sometimes people put those out on YouTube as well, for sure.
They can edit it, right? They can edit it out and stuff like that. They want to take stuff out, cut stuff in, whatever.
And he's going to show you. He's going to show you how to do that at some point. Right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Riverside has an editor. A lot of professional studios, if you want to edit specific tracks, like maybe I want to change something only on Eric's audio, not Mario's audio, that's when you take those files outside of Riverside and do stuff in like Adobe, or if it's video, you're using like Adobe Premiere or Final Cut, stuff like that. But I'll show you guys what you can do in Riverside. Riverside lets you do things like get rid of background noise. There's like a flip switch to do that. You can normalize audio levels. That basically means if someone's mic is way louder than someone else's when I recorded it, I can use this switch to make all of their levels kind of the same so no one's way louder or quieter. You can also choose to cut out sections like when it starts, when it ends. I can grab little bits in the middle of the recording and erase those using Riverside. So making really quick edits, I can do that without having to leave the platform, which is cool. Yeah.
That's really neat. The only thing that I struggled with is some of my students, and you'll go through it once you go into like a studio and you show them, but you in studio effects that you can implement during the podcast. So you can have people clapping and cheering.
Yeah.
Or you can upload a couple of your own sound effects if you choose to do so.
Sure. One
of my students went to play their recording. It for whatever reason, you knew that there was something going on there, but it was inaudible. Like you couldn't hear it. Like it wasn't how it sounded in studio.
Gotcha.
So happened, but it just kind of whatever. Once it went and it was finalized, you weren't able to hear those sound effects for whatever reason.
For sure. I'll double check that with some other people on the support team. Basically, there is a limit to how large the file could be or how the file's being recorded differently. I'll talk to that when I get to the media board thing. The main comment I have about the media board, if you have audio files, we have mono files and stereo files. So stereo audio files, there's a left side and a right side, and maybe some parts of the audio are a little more to the left or right. Like pretty much all music you listen to is in stereo. When you're playing something on the media board in Riverside, it's important to know that those files, they might sound stereo or they start out as stereo if you uploaded one and you're playing it in Riverside. When it's recording that media board file, what it's going to do is sum it to mono. So it basically takes the left and right, combines them. So sometimes if you have a stereo recording and you put it in mono, some of those things that are left and right, the frequencies kind of cancel each other out. So that might sound different. If it's literally silent and there's no sound in that file after the recording, there might be something going on with maybe what type of file or how big it was. Basically, if you guys have any questions about stuff with Riverside, if you have a file that you're not sure about, anything like that, what you could do is click on the bottom right where it says contact support. We have a really good support team. I would say make use of this whenever you guys have questions about the files or if something's going wrong. Yeah. Sorry, Mario, what were you going to say?
No, you're good. I didn't, the support thing is great. I haven't used that yet, but that's good to know that I can go in there and ask a question and then somebody will get back to me. So
for sure. Yeah. I'll let them know that you guys are using it too. So we'll see if you can, get you guys like on a short list or something. If you have any extra questions, happy to help out. But yeah, the support channel, really super helpful. They're around like 24/7. There's a full staff of us like during the day on like normal, like working hours, like in the US, but we have people any hours of the night, like online, if you have any questions for sure.
Perfect. Awesome.
Cool. So I'll keep things moving. I'm going to join this studio, show you guys how to stop recordings. So the main thing is you send those links out. I recommend just when you create a studio, copy one of these links. And then when you're inside your calendar, you can add inside the description of the calendar event, just say like, hey, join this Riverside studio link. And you drop that link inside there. So the main thing to keep in mind using this Riverside tool, you can join on a laptop or a mobile device. When you're on a laptop or a computer, you have to use Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge. So Edge is kind of like Google Chrome, but it's like a PC specific kind of browser. The reason we need to use those specific browsers, Riverside was designed to record. So even if something crazy happens, like my battery dies or I lose Wi-Fi halfway through, if my recording hasn't sent all the way, it's not going to lose those files. I can retrieve them later, or when my guest gets a better internet connection, they can finish the upload later. So that's why we need to make sure if they're on a computer, they're using Google Chrome or Edge. Also, Riverside's going to warn you guys if a guest joins and they're not using one of those browsers.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, how that makes sense.
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit more about how the recordings work. All you guys need to know, really, make sure they're on Chrome or Edge when they're on a computer. And if they're on their mobile device, so it could be Android or iPhone, could be a tablet, they'll just download that Riverside app on the App Store. So if you're on a mobile device, it's got to be the app from the App Store. If you're on a computer, it's Chrome or Microsoft Edge.
Okay.
Yeah. So you send out that link. I'll click Join Studio or Go to Studio. So this is the only way I can join a Riverside studio and be able to stop and start recordings. So you can't send someone one of these links and they'll have the ability to hit record. You have to be signed into that Riverside account to do that. So signing in, clicking Go to Studio from here. And then this thing is called our lobby, or it's basically what our guest or any producer will see when they click that link. So before they join, they can just type their name, they can select what mic, camera they're going to use. What's cool about Riverside is I can tell what camera, mic my guest is using. So the big thing about recording remotely, so I have someone in like a different state or they're just like at home and I'm recording them from their computer instead of having them in the same room as me. It gets pretty difficult trying to find out, like making sure if their mic is plugged in the right way or, how to adjust their audio levels, stuff like that. As soon as you're remote, there's a lot more variables. Like if you're not sure what kind of mic they're going to use. So Riverside will tell you what they're currently using. So if they're supposed to be using a different mic or something like that, we can at least see there and then tell them, hey, like click on that mic button. We'll be able to choose a different microphone from there. So before your guest hops in the call, they can choose, what camera they're using. Maybe it's muted on their way in. Like if they're really private and it's an audio only thing, no big deal. The only other thing we have to do before we join Riverside's calls, we have to select if we're wearing headphones or not. So the reason we have to choose if we're wearing headphones, this is one of the things that Riverside does that's actually affecting the audio. A big difference between Riverside and then something like Zoom or Microsoft Teams. When you're recording on one of those things, they by default are just adding a bunch of processing like filters on the audio. So it gets rid of background noise, stuff like that. When you're editing a podcast afterwards, a lot of times people like to record audio with as little audio processing or filters as possible because they want to be able to control what those filters are doing or get rid of noise and stuff after it's recorded, not while it's being recorded. So if you're not wearing headphones, if you make that selection, so that basically means audio's coming out of the laptop speakers, right? So if I have speakers in the room or something, my microphone's basically picking up any sound that's being spit out of my computer. I just want to make sure with my separate tracks, it's a really good thing to have separate tracks when you're editing. You have a lot more control. So I want Eric's audio to be just Eric's audio, not the sound of the other people on the call. So when you're not wearing headphones, what it's going to do is turn on what's called echo cancellation. Echo cancellation, it basically mutes my mic when anyone else on the call is talking or making noise. Because I don't want my mic to pick up the noise from other people in the conversation, right? Like my separate track should only be my audio. So when you guys are recording on Riverside or any kind of stuff that's remote, I always recommend, if you're going to get a way better sounding audio channel, there's no echo cancellation applied when people are wearing headphones. So like one of the big tips I'd have for recording stuff, whether it's remote or in person, everyone's always wearing headphones instead of having stuff come out of their laptop speakers, for sure.
Okay, that's also, something that I had in my mind. Like when I was making videos initially to show the students like what it could do, I wasn't wearing headphones. And so
Oh, it's cool. Yeah, either way, I have a lot of people that don't wear headphones, like because of the video thing, like a lot of news stations, things like that. They're like, yeah, we can't have people wearing big cans like in the video. That comes up a bunch. So it's a very, very fair point. No, for sure. Like you don't have to wear headphones, but as far as the audio quality, if you guys are going for, this is definitely a podcast, you'll see on like videos of podcasts, it's normal to see people like, or maybe a little more normal to see people in headphones, or they got like the mic in front of them on screen. So if you're going for that kind of vibe and you want the podcast to look like that, if you could get away with it, I recommend headphones. But yeah, it's by no means required to use them if you don't want to.
But you're saying from an overall audio perspective, it's better quality audio to go with the headphone variable as opposed to not wearing them. Correct?
Definitely. Yeah. So there's no sound coming out loud for your speakers. So Riverside doesn't have to add any audio processing to get rid of it. So you're getting files that have as little audio processing as possible. We want them to sound just like we're recording someone in person or in Adobe in the same room as me. So when I go to edit them, I have a lot more control, and it's always easier to cut stuff out of an audio recording than to add sound back in. So like when in doubt, I say wear headphones, make sure we have as little like filters or noises, things like happening on that person's recording while we're recording.
Perfect. Good to know. Didn't know that.
But yeah, on your way. Oh, sorry. Anyone have a question?
So
Go ahead, George.
I don't know how to put this, but like, can you like simultaneously like watch a video while you're like in this like almost like a reactionary like thing?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a couple different ways to do that. I'll hop in the studio to show you guys what's going on here. One last thing I'll show you before we get into it. When you're joining the Riverside call to hit record, maybe you guys want to record yourself because you're part of the podcast. If you want to do that, just go ahead and click Join Studio because you're joining as what's called a host. So there's two roles you can join when you're hopping into the Riverside call. You can be a host or you can be what's called a producer. So a host role is locally recorded. So when you're a host, you're also getting high quality audio and video of yourself. But when you click here underneath where it says Join as Producer, you're joining the studio. You can still hit record and things like that, but you're not going to be locally recorded. So join as a producer role if you don't want videos of yourself or audio of yourself that's high quality. So more like, you're the person who's hitting record, adjusting levels and stuff, but you're not going to be in that podcast.
One other question. I can see you right now in this like preview. You called it like what was it? The gallery?
Like the lobby or waiting room, whatever you want to call it. Yep.
Yeah. So now if I was a part of your studio, how would you toggle to see what type of like equipment I'd be using in this lobby area?
Sure. So in the lobby, you can't tell when people are in the lobby, but after they're inside the studio, there's a setting you can turn on your studio that's called the waiting room. I always recommend it's turned on for people. So when they're doing stuff, you go to general. In the general part of the settings, there's a thing that says require guests to wait in the lobby. This should be on by default for studios. I recommend it's always on. Basically, when that switch is on, you're in control of when people join that studio. Like when they click that go to studio or join button from their window, you'll see their name here. They're still going to need to wait for your permission to join. After they join, they're going to look like this on the right-hand side. So I see their name. I can see if they're a guest or a producer underneath here. And so when I click this down arrow, that's where I can see on the right-hand side what camera they're using, what mic they're using, where the sound's coming out. So if I see that someone's using their MacBook Air microphone, but I know they have a nicer mic that's plugged into the computer, what I could do is hover over that mic button for myself and then select a different mic. So I would always have that guest, maybe I see they're using a different mic or one they're not supposed to be using. I'll say, hey, can you just go to the bottom of your screen? You have that mic button. Hovering over that, you can click any other mic that's connected to your computer.
Oh, so you can't change their settings. They physically have to go and do it on their own. If
Correct.
They have better,
yeah.
have to like encourage them to be like, hey, hover over this button and choose like your external microphone that you're using via USB or whatever route you're going.
Yeah, regular Riverside accounts, you can only see what they're doing and you can tell them how to change it. We do have those specific accounts for those big businesses, and they have a few extra features, or you have more options for like what frame rate the video is going to come out as. One of the extra features with those big fancy accounts is the option to actually change what mic and camera is going on your end as that person that's remote. So I think that's one of the differences between those like big fancy accounts that something like Spotify or CNN would use, and then the regular accounts that like anyone with just a regular Riverside subscription would have. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't, that's good. I just learned something today with regard to that. That's good. I didn't know that, but they physically have to go and change it on their own.
Yeah. So the remote people would just be able to hover over the mic or the camera button or where it says speaker, and they can change where their sound's coming out, what camera they're using, stuff like that. And then pretty straightforward, click those mic and camera buttons if you want to turn off your mic or camera. If I did that during a recording, that would mute the audio or turn off my camera. So my video would look like a black screen, or, my mic would just be totally silent if I muted it during a call.
Okay.
So a couple other cool things about Riverside in the studio settings. The biggest thing you want to double check before you get going is if you want to record audio only or audio and video. So when this switch is turned on inside of the recording part of your settings, it says we're recording only audio. So if I want that high quality video, turn this off. So I'm getting video and audio files.
Okay.
Noise reduction. So I mentioned that echo cancellation thing earlier, right? That thing that mutes my mic when anyone else is making noise. The way I turn that on and off is just for each individual person underneath their little box on the right-hand side. You can flip that on or off for someone manually. So this is going to come in handy. Maybe someone joins and they say, yes, I'm wearing headphones. Like they made that selection. So echo cancellation is off for them. The main thing you want to check before you do a Riverside call, after they're in that studio with you, are they wearing headphones? Are they not? If they're not wearing headphones, just make sure that you turn on echo cancellation.
Okay.
So that mutes, if it's on, it's muting your mic when anyone else is making noise or speaking. The other option to get rid of noise during a call is that thing that I just showed called noise reduction. So you can adjust that here inside your settings, or it's just going to show up on the top right of your studio. So you don't even have to open the settings to make this adjustment. Noise reduction is a little different than echo cancellation. This is going to affect everyone or no one. It's not a switch that's for specific people. And so what noise reduction does, it's going to mute anyone's mic when they're not speaking or making noise. So basically, let's say I have a big air conditioning unit, or like my fridge is right next to me during a call when I'm recording someone. My fridge is making a lot of noise. It's like a loud background noise, or I have like a fan that's making a lot of background noise. When I'm not speaking, maybe I don't want that noise to happen at all. I just want to make sure that it's quiet. I don't have to worry about the person muting their mic so there's no background noise, and then they unmute when they want to talk. So what I could do is turn on noise reduction. So turning on noise reduction, I don't have to ask them to mute to get rid of that background noise. When they're not speaking, it's just going to mute their mic so it's quiet. So this will come in handy when you guys have a lot of background noise when someone's being recorded. I would say the biggest tips for recording audio, it has a lot to do with where they are when they're being recorded, and then just what kind of mic they're using. So if you would just want to find the best ways to make your audio sound way better, just right off the bat, my biggest recommendations are find like a nice quiet place, that you're not next to something that makes a lot of noise, or, close any windows, doors, stuff like that. And then just make sure that you have good audio equipment, or if you can, using something like an external mic, like something that you plug into your computer. It's not just the one built into your mic or your computer or your phone. So a lot of those external microphones are going to sound way better than the ones that are built into the device. But yeah, the room has so much of an effect on how that audio is going to sound afterwards.
So,
So,
uh,
no, go
let's
for
say
it.
I was in a room with somebody and they were like talking in the background stuff like that. Would it cancel them too out? Or
Good question. Yeah. So echo cancellation, that's the thing that's going to affect the other person's voice if you guys were talking at the same time. So that's my main recommendation. Again, like why I would want to wear headphones on a call. Because if you have people, maybe it's like a sports podcast or even in like news interviews, stuff like that, like a lot of people are like talking over each other and it gets pretty heated and stuff like that. If you have echo cancellation on, when people are speaking at the same time, it's going to try to mute that other person's mic while they're talking. So the recording afterwards is going to sound a little bit like muffled, or, you hear like some like warbly, some kind of like compression thing. Like you can tell the audio is trying to be muted or some kind of effect is being put onto it. So I would recommend people wear headphones, because even when people are speaking at the same time, if echo cancellation is turned off, it's not going to mute their mic. You can still hear both of them just as well. So that would be my recommendation. That's going to affect if people are talking at the same time, the echo cancellation.
but there was like, look, so let's say right now, okay, so where you're sitting at right now, right? What if there's someone right behind you, or like someone right behind you or next to you, and they start like talking stuff like that, but you're the one with the headphones on, stuff like that? Well, like I'd be able to hear them, or
Yep. So echo cancellation, whether that stuff is on or off, it's not really looking at like literal like different people. It's just basically a different device. So if anyone else who's on the Riverside call, if they're joining from a different phone or a different laptop, if they make noise, it's going to mute my mic. If we're in the same room, we could talk at the same time, and this switch has no effect on our mic. Like as far as Riverside, as far as the app is concerned, it's basically one audio source. Like it could be 5 people in a room or just one person. But if you're on that one mic, it's not going to affect echo cancellation or anything like that.
So it is going to pick them up if they're talking, because
Yeah,
you have
if they're in the same room. Yeah.
a room that's going to pick them up. My
Mhm.
question I have is, because this platform can be rolled out using a mobile app, right?
Mhm.
And you have no, like, it's basically using your phone's audio recording device, like your audio mic, right?
Yeah.
That also play into it? Like, is that because if you have a nice setup at home and you have an external mic that you're hooking up and you're using that, you're going that route, you're going to get better quality audio. Does it diminish the quality if you're using it on the go?
It depends, honestly, like what kind of device you have, if that mic sounds good or bad. Microphones, I would say that the mics on computers versus phones are a little more even or comparable. Like the mic on the phone could be a little bit better. I think the big difference is when you go to video stuff. So you guys have probably already seen, like if you're joining a Zoom or like a Google Meet, and then you guys are on your laptop and the laptop's built-in camera, the camera on your phone, even if it's like a few years old, like I had an iPhone 10 until like last week, like those cameras are already so much better than the ones built into the laptop. So I think when it comes to video, if you don't have any external like other cameras or stuff like that to work with video things, it makes it so much better to use a phone. But with your mic, when it comes to that stuff, I would say it's a little more even, like the quality of the built-in mic for your computer versus your phone. Maybe the phone's like around the same, if not like just a little better. I would say another thing. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just saying. Oh, okay. So they're comparable. Maybe the phone is slightly a little, maybe a tick better from an audio perspective. But
Mhm.
personally, the camera on your phone could be leaps and bounds better than what you have as far as your built-in camera in your laptop.
For sure, yeah. And then a nice trick that people do sometimes, this is actually a fun way to get multiple camera angles if you guys want to dive more into the video end of stuff using Riverside. What I could actually have someone do if they're at home and I want to have a shot of like it's a Riverside call, maybe it's one of just them, and then maybe it's another like camera angle where it's like them from the side, or if we're recording people in the same room, maybe I want another camera angle that has everyone in the shot and then it cuts back to like just that one person. What you guys could do is use the same exact guest link. These links don't change or expire, so the link's same for all of the people being locally recorded. So just add the same link to the one on your phone. Maybe I'm on my laptop for the shot that's just me, and then I have a phone set up somewhere else in the room. So during the recording, all these videos are going to line up afterwards. They're perfectly in sync. So I can switch back and forth between the video of just them and then the one that the phone was recording of everyone in the room. So you can have someone join on a Riverside link on their phone for an extra camera angle, or maybe it's an iPad, doesn't matter. But you can have that set up in the room to get multiple camera angles for that same Riverside session.
Oh, that's neat. See, that was the other thing that my boss and I were talking about, is how can we get another camera angle involved in the podcast where, like you said, it would do a wide shot of whoever it is, like if you have multiple guests on the show, how can we incorporate it within in the video component? So that's pretty cool how you can send them a guest link, right? And then like put your phone on like a tripod and get it from that perspective. Now, when you edit it together, that's how you have to grab that other piece of video that's recording simultaneously.
Yeah.
Portion.
Yeah. Riverside's going to give you separate tracks of everyone on the call. I'll also show you guys, someone asked about sharing video and stuff. There's a couple other ways we can share it. So after I made sure it was audio and video in my settings, I'm going to get both recorded. I just hit start recording. By the way, right when that happened, when the countdown was going down, that's when those audience members would start to be able to see and hear everyone on the call. So recording's underway, right? So we see that on the right-hand side, it says recording next to all those guests or people being locally recorded. What's cool about Riverside, it's uploading the files while the recording's happening. So you don't have to wait as long after the recording's done to get the recordings of that person. When someone's a guest in Riverside, they're using that device, whether it's a laptop or a phone. When the recording's done, all they have to do is make sure they keep the Riverside studio live, like they keep that tab open on their computer until it tells them their upload's done. So even while the recording's happening, you can see my recording's already like 90-ish% complete. So it's going to only take a couple seconds most of the time after you stop recording for that upload to be totally done, when they can just close the tab.
Because it's cloud-based. That's why it's able to do that, right?
Yep. And that's why we want to make sure we're using those Chrome or Edge browsers on a computer. So Riverside's actually chopping up the recording into really tiny bits and pieces as we're going along. All of those bits are parts of the recording. They're going to be sent over the cloud to Riverside, and Riverside servers, like those Riverside computers, basically stitch all those little parts together, turn them into those WAV files, those MP4 video files that we can download later. So 99%, 96%, whatever of my recording, it's already been sent to Riverside. It's not even being stored on my device right now. That 1% or whatever part's not completed yet, those parts of my recording are actually inside of my browser's storage. So inside of my browser's cache or storage, that's where those little parts are living. And that's the main reason we're using Chrome or Microsoft Edge, because Riverside has a way to retrieve those parts if my upload's not done and then I leave the call. So we want to make sure they keep the tab open while the upload's running. But worst case scenario, let's say, like I said earlier, my router gets unplugged by one of my roommates or something, or maybe my battery dies on my computer and I just lose connection entirely. If my upload's not done, it's not like I lost those parts of the recording. What you can do is send someone this link. It's called the upload link. I'll show you where that is. It's really easy to find it. Just when you go to download your files, it's on that page there. But you can send someone this upload link so they'll open it on the same browser or whatever they use on their computer to record. That's going to find any parts that haven't been sent to Riverside and just finish the upload for them. So I think the thing that's going to make your life so much easier, though, you just ask the person that was recorded remotely just to chill out in the call, keep this tab open until it says the upload's complete.
All right, that's neat. So it's hiding in the cache if cut off the call for whatever reason. Okay.
Yep. And then you can see how far along everyone else's upload is on the right-hand side. So right where I went to see where echo cancellation's on or off, what mics they're using, I can see this little percentage during the record that says how far their uploads ran so far. So this is a good place to check during the call. Like that'll be a red flag for me if I see everyone's kind of chugging along like 90%, something like that. One of my people stuck at like 0%. That's when I would say like, okay, like let's double check your internet, make sure you have good connection. Something that would help a lot is if you close any other tabs or apps that would be open during the call. If I just make it, as little running on my computer as possible, that's going to help the upload speed, and it's going to help how well this call is like performing. Like you guys will probably tell, like if I have 100 tabs open and I'm on a Zoom call or something, it might not look as good if I just close everything else because my computer's not working as hard.
My computer's got a million tabs open, so that's probably another issue.
That's all good. Yeah. But talking about video stuff, just to make sure I cover that, you mentioned that thing earlier where you can play like claps or noises. We have this thing called the media board inside the studio. So other than just recording people, a lot of you guys might want to have something like maybe there's a clip of an interview you want someone to listen to, react to it. Maybe it's like a video you want someone to listen to, react to it. You can do this one of two ways. I recommend doing it this way using the media board because when you record these files, when it's hit the live, that means when I play one of these things, it could be something that's only like I uploaded it. It's my own audio or video recording, or we have these like stock sounds that already come with Riverside, like a drum roll or cheering, like kind of like cheesy sounds like that. But you can add video files here. You do want to make sure that it's the right size. If it's over a certain file size, it's not going to be able to be played. You want to make sure the resolution is matching all the other videos to make it even cleaner for editing. It's not like essential that it's the same resolution. Basically, Mario, I can send you a little help center thing from Riverside. It talks about the different file types that you're allowed to add to the media board or how big the files can be. So you make sure that like when you're playing files back, it's going to look and sound okay after.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah,
Sure.
that would be great. So like when George tells a bad joke or whatever, we could get that like little what is that? The drum joke. There it is.
Yeah, it's just like a like something like that. But most people will use this for like a little clip of audio or maybe like an intro sound or something like that, or like a video you want someone to react to. So the main difference between using this media board, when it's on preview, it's not being recorded. No one else can hear it or see this file I'm playing, but I can look at, how loud is it going to sound for everyone else.
Wait, so you like, oh
Yeah, see all those little things he's got right there.
Censor. So let's say someone started cursing or something like that, you can censor it.
This would be more for like what's going on these files, not from anyone else on the call. If you wanted to like censor someone or turn something off during the recording, what you would do is just hit that mute button for everyone during the recording. That's going to make that in your recording like be silent. It's not going to show up there. So that would be the best way to kind of like turn something off as well.
noise thing, man. I think that's my favorite part of the software.
He's going into it right here. Here we go. So now here's your media tab. He's going to go about using it.
So when you add these files, if you want to add your own audio or video files, if it's anywhere in your computer, it could be in a folder of a bunch of different audio files. Just click and drag that folder and it'll just add it to your studio. So another thing you could do is click that plus, go through all the files on your computer that way, and then add them. So once you have the video or audio files, like I said, preview, no one else can see or hear it. You want to make sure it's not like blowing anyone's eardrums out because it's way too loud in the headphones or something. But when you're ready to play it for everyone, what you could do is hit live. So once it's saying live, it doesn't say going live. That means when I play this, it's going to create a separate clip, like a recording all by itself of that file. Riverside gives you guys files if you want to work with the separate files all together outside of the Riverside editor. There's files that are only as long as how long I played it for. Like I only played 13 seconds of this file, right? This recording is way longer than 13 seconds. It's like 7.5 minutes. So you'll be able to download a file that's only 13 seconds long, but you can also download a file that has blank space inside of it. So it's the same exact length as all of the other recordings. So I like using those when I'm dealing with separate files because I don't want to have to download my separate tracks, put them in Adobe, and I have to drag that like clapping noise or the bad joke noise to where it actually happened during the call. It's already going to be lined up with when it happened with that synced file. So that's one thing you can do with audio or video, just playing it that way to get a separate track.
You just have to hit play. Okay.
Yep. So play, pause, making sure that it's on live. So live means it's playing for everyone. If it's not playing back, it could be something like it's the wrong size file or like it's too large, or maybe there's something else going on. We could just double check with support to make sure everything's cool. Yeah.
So if they hear one of those examples, how would you just click on it and it'll play it for them, or?
Yep. Make sure this is live, and then I'll click on any of these files, and then it'll play for everyone in the studio.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
What's up?
You make your own like one of those noises right there that you have on the files. You can like make one your own, right?
Yeah, definitely. Any audio file that I've recorded, I could just drop it into this soundboard thing here so I can play it back. If you have a bunch of different noises, I can search. So anything that like I've labeled here. I'll be able to grab if I have like a billion different sounds or videos here. But I always recommend sharing video, downloading a video, playing it through here, because the internet doesn't have any effect on this recording. So just like our guests and all of those people that are being locally recorded, this is a local recording, which means it records it on that person's device, then sends it over the internet. It's not like a Zoom call where if I have really bad Wi-Fi, it's going to make my video or audio look or sound worse. What would happen like that is if I share my screen. So if you guys had a video like on YouTube and I share my screen, I open up like a YouTube app tab and I start playing it from there. If I have bad Wi-Fi, this screen recording is going to look a little bit worse than it would have if I had really good Wi-Fi. So my biggest tip, if you guys share video or audio files, using that media board thing specifically.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how you start and stop things. I mentioned earlier, you might use video for little clips when you guys are putting stuff together. Maybe you want to put something on social media to like advertise the podcast. You can do this really cool thing where you drop markers during the call. So there's like a little mark clip button. So I click there and it adds a marker. So when I go look at the files that I created in Riverside later, it's going to show me when I drop that marker. It already has like a 30-second thing selected, but I can edit how long it is. So I can make it a little, adjust when it began or when it ended. But if I want to just, as I go throughout the recording, like someone says a really funny joke, or I'm like, oh my God, that'd be great for Instagram or something, I just hit that mark button. So afterwards, I already have that part of the call highlighted inside my editor. So I can start working from there instead of having to find that specific part again way later when I'm editing stuff.
What did you say the mark was at again?
So it's right.
Yeah.
It's right.
So,
Right. Yeah.
in the middle of the recording, that marker button will show up at the bottom of your screen. It's just mark clip.
Right.
So you can just hit the M button on your keyboard if you want to do that as well. And that's a big thing you guys will find out as you get more into like editing stuff or using things like Adobe or Pro Tools is a really popular audio editing software for audio only stuff. There's so many keyboard shortcuts and those like really big high-end software, like all these different buttons do really specific things instead of having to click and go. That's a really good way to get very good at like editing stuff or using Premiere if you're doing video, like Adobe Premiere, or Pro Tools if you're doing audio things, like learning all of those keyboard shortcuts, like what key does a thing instead of having to click somewhere. It makes it way faster to edit stuff. Like all my friends that do sound stuff for movie and TV and things like that, they got really good at using all those keyboard shortcuts. But that's just like one thing you could do in Riverside to use a keyboard shortcut, basically.
That's pretty.
So after you're done with the call, it says upload complete. That's what your guest would see when it's all good. You don't have to keep that guest person on their camera and video, like audio. Maybe they have to like eat lunch or they have to go to a different class or something. It's not a big deal if they're done with the record, but their upload's not done. Instead of closing the tab, what they could do is click that leave button. So clicking leave, it doesn't get rid of the Riverside tab all the way. It just turns off their audio video, basically, like they leave the call. So if your guest is not done uploading, but they don't want to keep their audio and their video going, what you can have them do is click leave instead of closing the tab.
Interesting.
So since it says uploaded complete, right?
Mm-hmm.
That whole uploads to the person that does not have it uploaded, right?
Sorry, can you say that one more time?
So you can send it to the person that, like, let's say this upload is not complete. Can you send that upload to the person?
No, if it says upload complete, this is for my recording only. If someone else's upload is still going, it's sending it automatically to you. One thing you could do for that guest, like I said earlier, maybe they close their tab too early. If I click this X before my upload's done, you're the one that with that Riverside account that hit record, you're actually going to get an email from Riverside that says, hey, looks like Eric closed that tab too early. So what you would do then is send someone the upload link. Sorry?
No. So that's it.
No, it's okay. Yeah. So inside the specific recording, so inside Riverside, you go to view recordings for all your different studios to find all those files that you've created there. So what you can do is click these three dots at the very top when you're inside that specific take. Like every time I started and stopped a recording, it looks like this. It's a pretty great picture of me. Wow. But I click the specific take, click the three dots, and you can copy that link to the upload page. So basically, the guest gets something that says, hey, go to the upload page already. But what you could do is click there to copy that upload link, and then you can send it to them. It's the same link no matter what. It just says Riverside FM/upload. Like it's the same link no matter what recording session it was. This is what it looks like when they open it on their computer.
Oh, I had one question too. Like, so when you're piecing this together, like
Mhm.
when we started using it with my advanced student, some of them were like, they were like opening up a studio and they were doing multiple recordings within that same studio,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And they were, I can't piece these together. And I'm like, is that correct? You can't piece them together if they're, is that
Yeah.
correct?
If
Like, no,
if you want to record multiple different, like I started and stopped recording, then I did another recording and stopped it. You're gonna have to go outside of Riverside to combine those files. Yeah.
I was correct. I'm like, no, you can't do that. You have to do
Mhm.
one recording.
Yeah,
And
one
have-
continuous recording if you want to do all the editing stuff inside Riverside without leaving. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, I can't put these together. So when they were playing back their podcast, they had to stop, go out, go to the take number 2 to get the second part of the podcast, and so on and so forth until it was done. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, you can't put it together. You got to use Adobe Audition in order to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're doing separate takes, like all the separate recordings, if you want to combine these, then you would go into Audition or something else to put those together for sure. But inside Riverside, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm listening to what you're saying. Go
Oh,
ahead.
it's all good. Yeah. So you'll be able to click this edit button at the top right to get started putting all these things together in Riverside's editor. So the first thing you can do, you can choose what the orientation is of the video. Like maybe I'm going to social media and I want it to look like a square or a vertical video. You can change this later. If it's all audio too, I don't even have to worry about that. So at the very bottom of the screen, you have your entire recording. So I can click at a certain point of the video. I can click split if I want to like split the take. Maybe I'm getting rid of a specific part of the recording like that. So this is how I'm editing things out of Riverside. Just in the middle of the clip, maybe I want to cut this in half so I can trim a certain part of it. Just click where it says split on the left here.
Okay.
If you dropped any of those markers, you'll see that on the very end or wherever I dropped it. I dropped that one towards the end of this recording. So you can see that dot there. You can also choose things like who's included. Maybe I played that media board sound like every time you added a track. If I don't want to use that media board sound in this edit, this version, I'll just uncheck it here so it's not showing up anymore. Another thing you guys could do, maybe I did audio and video. If I want to include someone's audio, but I don't want their video, what I could do right next to them, I could click this thing that says use audio only, this little waveform like symbol. So clicking this, I'm still checked. I'm still going to be in that thing when I export it, but there's no video right now. It's only Eric's audio.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other stuff you can do. So choosing between a grid view, so I see everyone's video at the same time, or if it's a speaker view. So this is like, when I'm sharing my screen or something like that, maybe that becomes the main thing on screen and everyone else is either off screen entirely, or you can tell like they're over the video in the corner, or they're just like separate from that video on the side. Like they'll show up here if it's on this version, but you can choose between a grid or a speaker view. Another cool thing is if you keep the aspect ratio, this basically means that no matter what, the video's entire frame, like if it was a normal, I'm on a laptop and it's like a landscape, like long video, no matter how many people are on the screen at the same time, I'm seeing the entire video frame. It's not cropping it so it fits everyone in the screen. So you can choose to either have it fill most of the screen or make sure no matter what, I see the entire video in their frame.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then smaller stuff, like I can add a background image. Like if I keep the full frame, maybe there's more background space. Like you can design your own image that has the name of your podcast or something to show up behind all the videos. Or you can even add a logo. So something that goes in front of everyone's videos, like put it in the corner of the screen or something. You can just create an image. It's on your laptop somewhere. I'll hit that plus to find it inside of my computer. So I can add an image and I'll click and drag it, resize it, that sort of thing.
So if I'm doing for my business, my side business, I can put my side business logo there and have it pop up on the podcast.
For sure, yeah.
It's like a gray screen without a gray screen.
Yeah, it's not gonna get rid of my background, like the brick wall thing or my drums I have behind me, stuff like that. Like it's not gonna get rid of anything in the video, but you can use the background to add something that goes behind everyone's videos or the
Picture.
logo to go for anything that's in front of the video.
Yeah, it's like right the way he has it oriented right now on the screen. It looks like a picture frame, so it's kind of like a decorative kind of thing. And then if he does it the other way, yeah, see, and it
right, and if he was like finished, like let's say like he was finishing like video, then it would just show the background after he's done, or
I think
Oh,
it'll
I-
keep the video on the entire time. That's a good question. So as soon as the video stops, that's basically the very end of this clip.
so. But the way, like right now, how he has it oriented, that looks like something like maybe I don't know. Would you say that would be good for Instagram maybe or like a
Oh yeah, like if you guys are trying to make a part of your podcast, like you're still going to put the full length podcast on Spotify or anything like that. If you want to have a little bit of that podcast that's going to social media or TikTok or something, what you could do is go to where it says layout, or sorry, where it says size, and that's where you change again, like after you get started, if it's a square or if it's like a vertical one. And then when I said about the aspect ratio thing, like when I turn that on, it keeps the full frame on no matter what. When I turn that off, it'll fit most of the screen. So if I have like 3 people on the call, it'll have 3 separate squares, but it'll still fill most of it. But as soon as I turn this thing on, now I can see their full camera again. So you guys can mess around with like what size the video is, whether it's landscape or portrait view, background images, and then you'd be able to push these little clips. You know, it could be the entire recording, or maybe it's only like 30 seconds long, and I can push that to TikTok or something like that.
So whatever is highlighted, and once you go and make those changes where you are right now,
Mm-hmm.
area is the only area that's going to be affected that way. Is that correct?
Yeah. So if I click export, it's only going to give me this video part that I've selected.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. So you can make as many of these different clips as you guys want to. So maybe I make a version of the recording that has the entire thing in it, no edits at all. I can just export it that way. Also, there's a really quick way. If all you want to do is download all of the tracks put together, what I can click is where it says all participants. That's when I click high quality because I want the high quality files, not the internet recording. There's always a version of it that's like an emergency backup recording that's like a Zoom call quality.
Okay.
The high quality one's going to let me really quickly just get a grid view. So it's all the grid view together. This one's just all of the audio tied together. So if you just want to get the full length recording, that's all the high quality files, you can just click one of these really quick. But when you go to custom, that's basically the same thing as me clicking that edit button. So I can start editing, you know, one of these clips and get really specific with what's included, you know, whether it's speaker view or not, stuff like that.
Man, there's so many like little doohickeys on this thing. I think yeah. Yeah. There's so many different variables involved. It's like, you know, clicking on the gear and just looking, you can only do a small little piece of this and you can change the layout of it. It's amazing.
It's cool stuff. Yeah. You guys can even share files with people. Like, let's say I record it and I want my buddy to do like an edit, download these tracks for me and like work with something in Adobe Audition. What you can do is inside the specific take, like maybe I only want to share with them the files from this one, not the latest recording I did. So what I could do is click this little link button here. It says copy link to recording. So now that I have that link, I can send it to anyone. So I'm going to open up this tab so it thinks that I'm just not signed into Riverside at all. If you sent someone that link that I copied from here, it'll look like this. So they can't use that editor thing, but they're able to download all of those tracks. So now they're going to be able to download the tracks, work with it on their end. So I didn't have to download files, you know, put them in Google Drive or something and give them files that way. All I had to do to share those files is just click that link and then send that link to somebody.
And they don't have to have a Riverside account.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So
It's
if
cool.
I want to edit something for me, like you just did, I just copy that link. I send it to George.
Mhm.
I can send it to Google Classroom. He can get it and he's able to have access to those files. He can download it and then go and do some post stuff.
Yes. Yeah. And then you can do it for the entire studio too. So maybe I don't want this specific take. Like I also want to give them all of these other recordings from my demo studio. I can click the same little button on the top right. So now I'm getting a link for all of these studio recordings.
How do you do it one at a time? You just go, you click on the one, or?
Yeah, click the specific take, like this one here. I want to share the files from just that. And you just click that little link button on the top right to copy the links to the recordings.
Wow, that's super cool.
Yeah.
That's super. I like it.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of other stuff. I wish I had more time to show you guys. I apologize. But like really small things, like after you create the clips, that's where the markers show up. If you added a marker during a call, just where it says clips at the bottom, you'll see it'll say marker. And then whenever I dropped it, so I can click there and like maybe I want to duplicate it because I want to have the same version. But in one of the versions, I make it like speaker view, and the other one, it's a grid view the whole time. So I can do that sort of thing. Inside of my settings here, you can also set up a live stream. So maybe I want to live stream during the Riverside recording to like YouTube or Twitter or Facebook. I can just turn this on here. All of these websites, what they have in common, they use a streaming thing called RTMP. It's basically a fancy way to say like they need 2 links to be able to connect Riverside to YouTube or whatever. So these 2 links are going to show up on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and say like YouTube Live or whatever the streaming page is there, it'll give you 2 links that you can add to Riverside. So you drop those here. As long as this switch is on, all you have to do to start a live stream to somewhere is just start recording in Riverside. So if these links are here and that switch is turned on, when I start a recording in Riverside, it'll start streaming to whatever's connected to that studio.
That would be beneficial for us when we like do interviews here in my classroom. We could actually stream it out to the Trenton homepage.
Yeah, if Trenton uses RTMP, if you don't see a website showing up here, you can use this thing that says custom service. So that's just like any other website that uses RTMP streaming. If that Trenton website gives you guys the 2 links because it's RTMP, I can just put them here, and then I'll be able to start the record to start that stream. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I meant to. Okay, that's cool. I'm sorry, I meant to say we could stream it to our YouTube.
Oh
channel.
yeah. Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
Do that, and we'd be doing a live broadcast right here in my classroom. Let's say we were talking about this month. Let's say we were talking about like Cancer Awareness Month, or anti-bullying month, whatever it is that's coming along the line. We're doing a podcast. We could stream it right to our YouTube channel.
For sure, yeah.
That's pretty neat.
Nice. And I want to make sure I'm not like at time or anything. Like, do you guys have any extra time, or like how long do you think we had, or is this about it?
We have about 10 minutes left in class.
Perfect.
So
okay, cool.
that's kind of where we're at. But if you have to go, we understand. But
no, it's all good. I don't have anything until 10:30. So I think the end of class is fine. If you guys want to talk more about Riverside or have any other questions or anything else about like going to school or doing kind of this kind of stuff for a living, any questions about that, happy to answer as well.
Yeah, I got one more. So let's say I was like make a YouTube video or something like that. Am I allowed to use Riverside to make it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like what you would be able to do is record all those different video files from here. If you're publishing stuff to YouTube, like you're going to be doing a lot of specific edits, doing like more YouTube, like heavy things, like a lot of those videos that are put out, they would most likely just download these separate tracks and then work with this stuff in a different editing tool because they'll have a lot more control. Because Riverside's great to just be able to cut out certain parts of it. When I'm inside the editor thing here, if I want to export and get rid of audio stuff, like I said earlier, we can normalize levels or remove background noise. I can do that sort of stuff here. But if you want to go specific to like one person, I want to make only their track sound a little bit different or look a little bit different. That's when I would go to download stuff and then work in a different like editing tool. But yeah, you would be able to download these, put them together, and then add it to YouTube manually. Like you'll just have the file once it's done being edited. It'll just be somewhere on your computer and you can add it that way. Going straight to Riverside or straight from Riverside though, you would be able to, once these clips are put together, I want to see if I have a version of something that's already like an exported clip, like I already made it. But you'd be able to push to Spotify like you guys were talking about a little earlier. So basically, once the clip is done exporting, it'll tell me that down here in the corner, and I can click this button that says Publish to Anchor, which is that Spotify website that lets you guys push things there. We don't have a button like that for YouTube, but you could, of course, download the video or add it to YouTube. Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's dope.
Anybody else? Whittler, you have any questions about Riverside? Anybody else have questions specifically that pertain to this this platform, the Riverside platform. Yeah, and moving forward, how about questions regarding the career opportunities for audio? You got a great resource sitting right here. He can tell you kind of how his path went, or if you have questions regarding how do you get involved in audio, how like his path, like what his path was to get there.
Yeah, I want to know how many years did it take him to like do what he's doing, like where he's at right now.
There you go.
Yeah. So I actually went to college for audio stuff specifically. The thing I went to, it was like a bachelor's of music, like a lot of recording stuff. If you go to college for that, like usually it's more people are doing audio stuff, but they're also doing film and like visual things as well, or people are doing like music and recording. So I was really lucky that I did like the music stuff specifically, because I feel like the music people got a little bit more like into audio specific, like they're not worried about the visual thing. So if you're working on audio specifically, if you definitely want to do audio, if you're a musician, that's like a huge advantage to be able to do that together. Like the school I went to was kind of an even mix of like playing music and doing recording stuff. So like half the time I was like playing gigs or like doing live sound for bands and stuff like that. That's a great way to learn about audio and like how signal works, like getting from the mic through like all these different pieces of gear to where you're recording. Like learning about all that stuff is really great way to figure out like the podcasting things. Like that podcasting becomes super easy after you're used to doing like music studio stuff, because you can be dealing with like hundreds of different tracks. Like when you're editing podcasts at a professional level too, there's a lot more involved with not just like the different people's voices, but maybe you add like little background noise or like music that kind of is put into the edit, like during stuff like that. But I think going through a music background was cool because it was way more specific into the audio things. I learned about Pro Tools. In my experience, I think Pro Tools is one of the more like common editing tools for like industry, professional, whatever. Like it doesn't matter if it's music or movies and TV. Like a lot of my friends work on TV and film for people, like they live in New York City and like do that sort of thing there. But their thing is like all Pro Tools. So like a bunch of different like websites, like different apps like are used and stuff. But I guess learning like what tools everyone else uses like in the industry, like popular microphones to use, like popular editing tools, learning about all that stuff is good. But yeah, I think going to college helped a lot. You definitely don't need to go to college for audio to do that for a living. Like most of the people will tell you after you get there that it's pretty much a scam, like to do it, but it's not like that at all. Like they'll joke about saying that. Like it's mainly about, meeting the people who are already working in the industry, like getting their names and like asking them if you could just ask them a few questions. Like that'll take you guys like super far, and no one's going to be like so mean that they don't want to talk. Like people are always usually very helpful and interested in like teaching people about audio or answering questions. So I think one of the best things I did like coming through school, or what I'd recommend is, asking someone who does that stuff. Like if you shoot them an email, even if you're not asking for a job or something, just being like, hey, I'm interested in doing this for a living. Do you have any pointers? Or like finding like YouTube channels that talk about like different pieces of gear, how to learn about audio equipment. All that stuff is like really helpful.
You know, anybody else have questions for Eric? No? Sure. George, anything else you want to know?
More about the noise thing. So they're like meme noises, like you can upload those.
Yeah. Like it doesn't matter like how loud or quiet. It mostly just shorter sounds. But you can add those to that little media board thing, play them through there. So you'll be able to download those tracks. Like if I wanted to get the file that's only the noise, like it's only as long as that recording was. So I'll find that thing that said media board, because I played a media board file. That's what it's going to look like. It'll say media board sounds after I play a sound through there. So I can download the track that is just the audio itself. So when I started and stopped playing it, and then I can download something that says synced. So this is the one that has the blank space in it. So it's lined up with when I played it. So if you want to download a file, it's going to show up at the same exact time that I played it compared to everyone else's files already. I don't have to like drag it to line it up. Download all the tracks that say synced. But if you just want the sound itself, you would just click this audio button.
There you go.
Nice.
That's
There you
fine.
go. Anybody else? Question? Eric, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. It was extremely informative and helpful. I learned quite a few things along this journey, and I look forward to the recording of this, as well as some of the things that you had said you would send my way.
Yeah, of
So,
course.
I really, really appreciate it. It was outstanding.
Cool. I really appreciate everyone's time. I hope you guys get to use Riverside. If you have questions, you guys can always shoot me an email. Like Mario has my email address. I'll tell support that you guys are working on this stuff. It's really cool. So I think using that support channel, even if you have just like general questions about audio stuff, they're happy to answer that as well. So yeah, I'll send you that recording. I'll send you that article about the media board that talks about stuff. If you guys are curious about other things too, we have a really big help center that has a lot of articles. Like we have a YouTube channel that talks about how to record with Riverside on a phone, or tips for like using a teleprompter, or all of this kind of stuff. You know, our YouTube channel has a lot of great videos that talk about that sort of thing as well. So I'll send you guys some links if you want to like mess around with that more, or deep dive into more specific features, things like that.
Sure. Without question. That sounds amazing. Yes, sir.
Cool. Awesome. It's really cool that you guys have this program in your high school. Like going through school, like I didn't get to do anything about audio or video until I like went to college for that kind of stuff. So like really take advantage of having like expensive laptops, like apps that your school gets to pay for, stuff like that. Because once you're out of school, like it's not cheap to be able to download these apps, use things like that. So like take advantage of it, like ask your teachers lots of questions, good stuff like that. But I hope you have fun doing recording stuff. Let me know if you guys have any questions. But it's really cool that you're using Riverside. Happy that I could talk to you guys about it.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Really appreciate it.
Cool. All right. Take care, guys. Have a good one.